The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today is Father Joseph Sund. Hey, Father.
How are we doing?
Very good, thanks. Folks, before we get into today's show, I want to tell you about another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy called Pray Station Portable. It's a different kind of show. It's an opportunity for you to pray every day with the church using the Divine Office or Liturgy of the Hours. And it's one of the oldest podcasts around. Not even just the oldest Catholic podcasts. It's one of the oldest podcasts, period. So you want to check that out. So let's get into today's show. Before we get started, we talked last week, Joanne and I, about the new Apple announcements and the new, the phones and stuff. Well, all of the new OSs dropped on Monday. The Mac OS, iOS, Watch OS, iPad OS, TV OS, Vision OS has a new version. So all the OSs dropped. And one of the things I kind of note every year is the new Apple releases, software releases, always occur the week of the feast of St. Joseph of Cupertino. I wonder if that's a coincidence. Or maybe someone at Apple is a Catholic seeking the intercession of their patron saint of the town that the Apple headquarters is in. So.
I'm wondering if historically in Cupertino it's a big day of celebration, and so it just continues on.
Yeah, I wonder if they have if the stuff that goes on in Cupertino. It's kind of funny to think about, but I will take whatever intercession I can get from the saints who are there to help us out. All right. But that's not our main topic today. Our main topic is we're going to be discussing this article that was in the New York Times recently about smartphones in schools. That was the title of the article. It was in their daily morning newsletter. And it basically, with the start of the new school year, there's a lot of attention being paid to the use of phones by students in schools, the distractions, the problems that they cause, and the new ways that a lot of these schools are looking to fix the problem, to mitigate the problem that they cause. There's a lot of questions. Should they even be trying to do it? Is it the school's responsibility and just smartphones and society in general? So, Father, you worked in a high school for a while, and I'm sure you saw this up close and personal, the problems that cell phones can cause. Just in general, and we've talked about this on the show before, but in general, what was your approach to students using their phones in school? Did you discourage it? Did you, how did you approach it?
Yeah, since 2018, all the schools I've been at, 2018 till today, my new assignment, I'm still in a school with my new assignment. So Archbishop keeps me in schools, which I enjoy. So it's good. We've had a total cell phone ban from bell to bell in all of our schools. So that includes lunch period, pass period, and if and there are strict rules if they're caught using their cell phones. The cell phones are confiscated by the principal and given back at the end of the day, and then each school had a little different things for second offense, third offense, whatever. But usually it meant that their parents had to come and pick up the cell phone. And so, we have a little more leverage and flexibility being a Catholic school than the as this article is written on the approach of public schools, they do not have the latitude that we have as approach.
They might be getting it more through the legislation, but we can get into that. Did you see a difference? I mean, it's not like they implemented a policy and it changed things, but in the way the kids behave during the day, did you notice that it might have made a difference to not have the phones?
Absolutely. One of the biggest differences we saw wasn't so much during class, which we did see differences during class, but the most evident moment was at lunch. And the kids were learning to have conversations with each other. And before at lunch, they would eat lunch and stare down at their phones. And so this beautiful thing of community being built and them actually talking to each other was a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. The article that, we're talking about in the New York Times gets into like some of the issues as schools, more and more school systems are talking about implementing some sort of restrictions, from outright bans to bans during class and that sort of thing. But so there's some of the questions. How do we enforce the rules? What's an appropriate punishment for breaking them? Is confiscation of a phone appropriate, or detention, or how far do we go? Another question is, should schools ban phone use only during class time or for the whole school day? And so there are schools taking both approaches. As the article puts it, is a more social lunchtime worth the downside that parents can't easily reach their children? And that's an important point I want to kind of veer into. Is a big part of the problem are the parents, because parents have this expectation today that they can get in touch with their kids at any time.
Yes.
And as a Gen Xer and a parent, it kind of baffles me a bit, because hey, all of these parents who people who are parents of teenagers now grew up in an era where your parents couldn't get a hold of you at any time and you were fine. I don't understand this. I mean, I kind of understand, because I do worry about my kids. I think we've been trained by media hype to worry about our kids when they're not in our view all the time. But the fact is kids are fine when you can't. This is what did parents do what did our parents do when they needed to get information to us when we were at school? They either didn't, or they called the office and had them, called down to the office and gave us a note.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know if that's your experience. You're younger than I am, but.
Yep. That's my experience. Is parents called, and if I needed a call to get a ride home, if I had a quarter on me, I'd call that way. If not, I do that 1-800-COLLECT call, which my name was, Dad, this is Joe, pick me up. Right.
I remember that.
And if he heard you, he'd hang up, and
yep,
you knew they were coming. And so we survived. I think my senior year of high school, I got my first cell phone, and it was one of those Nokia bricks. And that indestructible thing that could survive the apocalypse itself. But even with that, I think I had like 250 minutes and 100 text messages.
Right.
So you were even limited texting classmates during school because you'd go over on your messages.
Right. Yeah. I mean, have you experienced or seen like parental pushback on restrictions?
The first year, yes.
Yeah.
Once they got used to it, not so much. It's pretty obvious when you see the freedom that the kids have without it, and the kids recognize it too. after a while, they go through kind of like a drug relapse or drug withdrawal. And then once that first couple weeks goes, they'll start realizing the difference in the freedom from the anxiety. Kids who were big thing is kids who were bullied a lot. A lot of that bullying was happening over Snapchat or text WhatsApp or whatever, and hidden from teachers' eyes. And so at least that's not happening during the school day. Now, I'm not as naive to believe that it's never happening.
It's not happening at all. Yeah.
But at least it's not happening under our watch in ways that we could be preventing. And so that's a good thing.
Yeah. One of the things that we've talked about before was how the pressure, the social media pressure that kids, especially girls, feel, but boys are feeling it in some ways too, like the pressure to like your friends' posts once they put it up and to put particular comments on it and that sort of thing. And if there's a rule that you can't use your phone during the day, then you're free from that pressure, at least during the school day. And I think that's a benefit as well.
I had one town that I was in, actually both that I was in, that the public schools policy was not the same as ours. In later years that changed, but they still had a more lax rule that they were allowed to use it during lunch and all of that, and ours was more strict. And there was still that anxiety from our kids that they weren't liking posts of so-and-so. And so there was always that FOMO, that fear of missing out, that still resided in them. So it's there. I mean, acknowledge it, but it shouldn't rule education.
Yeah. They talk about, is technology always a blessing? And that's a question that's coming up more and more these days is technological progress. We've always kind of treated it as a general blessing. It's, they come with costs, but in general, tech, better tech, advancing tech is always better. And I think, smartphones have really changed the world in many ways, in good ways. I love the things I can do with a smartphone, but it has come with a very steep cost for all of us, not just kids. The article talks to some, it talks to the Surgeon General of the United States, who talks about some of the issues like mental health issues, more kids have anxiety. So many kids are being treated for anxiety for all kinds of reasons, but smartphone use is probably one of them. Kids are lonelier than ever. Kids are experiencing loss of sleep because they're staying up on these. There's more polarization from social media use. We're more divided than ever because we have these little social media machines in our pockets to keep us outraged at everything all the time. You even see it like in neighborhoods. Now, my kids, we have limits on their screen time, so they're out playing in the yard, and they're out having fun, especially since they're homeschooled. But and it's actually had a bleed over effect to some of the other kids in our neighborhood who we see more often playing with our kids. But before you would go through neighborhoods and just not see kids outside. Or if you did, they were sitting, like my neighbor's kids across the street. If I saw them outside, they were sitting on a bench by the front door on a tablet or on a Switch or something, because mom and dad said, go outside. It's a nice day. So they walk out the door, sit on the bench and look at a screen. It's like now you see the kids playing it more, but I think it's a more generalized issue is just the kids are not out like they were. So they're if they're involved in sports or some other extracurriculars, but when they're not in those organized things, they're just not out having fun. When I was a kid, our neighborhood had gosh, I lived on a loop neighborhood, and there was probably, 60, 70 houses, and there were probably 50, 60 kids in the neighborhood, probably more even. And on a summer day, you'd see, gaggles of 20 and 30 kids playing, Foursquare or Relivio or, kick the can or whatever. But we'd be out there for hours until we had to be called in for dinner.
Yeah, we had a gravel lot behind one of my good friends' house, and we would play baseball in the gravel lot. And
right.
I mean, I relate to the movie Sandlot in a way that that you just you'd start a game of baseball with 4 kids, and an hour would go by, and all of a sudden you have 20.
Yes,
and that would happen. Same with basketball. Same with anything. Even the same, because it's easy for us to wag fingers, but we would sit out on the doorstep with our Game Boys and have the link cables going to do your Pokemon battles or whatever. You're younger than me, so that's we didn't have anything really like that when I was a kid. So there was ColecoVision and Atari and some of that stuff, but they weren't common as like Game Boys were. And that's another point is it didn't start with smartphones. It kind of started with game consoles and the handheld game devices. I mean, it's not just smartphones. And even the distraction in school thing. I remember, I think I was 4th or 5th grade when those little, what were they? Virtual pets. Was it Chia Pet or what?
Neopets.
Neopet. When those came out, and you'd have them in your desk, and you'd every so often go down and click around on them.
I think Neopets is an app. I think it's like Tamagotchi.
There it is. Tamagotchi. That's exactly what it was. If you were a poor kid, you had like the Sam's Choice version of it or whatever.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there were other technological distractions, and and I had begun to notice like the empty neighborhood problem before smartphones were a thing. Because kids would come home from school and they'd be on their Xboxes. I was a Cub Scout leader for many years. I'm still a Scout leader for older kids. And that's one of the things I hear about is like these kids will, like the Scouts even, will come home from school, do their homework, and then they're on their Xbox or whatever until the wee hours of the morning, no pun intended, like playing these games, but they're not. That's their socialization is mediated through an avatar on a screen. They're not going and going out and having fun and adventures in the world, in the wide world. Again, I think this is why scouting is such a great thing, because it gets kids outside, and we've actually enforced some rules about screen time there.
Yeah, and so back to the benefits that we see in the school of those very things of when we give free time in school, that they're like, for example, we'd have occasionally in really small schools, right? If you have a sporting event, you have a lot of free time when you just have 10, 15 kids in the school, right? And so there's sometimes a lot of kids get a little bit of free time. And the fact that their first question to the teacher when it's a slow day is, can we go outside and do our study hall? Can we? Yeah. And we didn't see that before when we were allowing cell phones, like this request to go outside, which is a beautiful thing to have teenagers ask you to go outside. I was usually, for me, most days, if it was below 80 degrees and above 60 degrees and not raining, if my class was small enough, we'd usually go outside anyway, because it's just nice.
Yes.
I enjoyed teaching outside. A little Socratic there, but
so schools have various methods of enforcing the cell phone, combating at least the smartphone distraction. There are these some schools using these sort of Faraday pouches. They're these locking pouches that they're sold for the purpose that the phone goes in and it blocks radio signals, so that they can't get through. So the phones can't receive messages, but they also can't be used. They're locked inside. The problem with those is there's plenty of TikTok videos and YouTube videos showing kids how to get them open. Whether you're breaking them open or just surreptitiously opening them so they can use them. So that's not a great use. I mean, but what it does is it keeps the kids in control of their phone. Some schools just ban them from the school altogether. Don't bring it. And other schools have they require them to be in lockers. Like you just have to put it in your locker and it has to stay there during the day. I tend to think of it like in the military or in government, they have SCIFs. They're called secure compartmented information facilities. So they're classified zones. And I experienced this once when we did a tour of the U.S. Coast Guard headquarters in Boston, the station there. And in order to go into the operations center, that you come to this door. Beyond this point, no cell phones were allowed, and they had these cubbies, and you put your phone in, and I'm not even sure they had a tag where you could, and you just knew which one was your phone when you came out, but you put your phone in, and that works too. You could do that. I mean, I think I agree that it's not just in the classroom that we need to keep kids from using the phone, but even between classes. So I would like a system where the kids come into the school at the beginning of the day, they check in their phone in a central location, like a coat closet, except it's a phone closet. Yep. And then they come back for it at the end of the day. And I think that's probably the best way of doing it because it prevents temptation, prevents kids getting around it, and everybody's in the same boat.
We had when we would do youth groups and retreats and stuff. We had a giant backpack that was a frog. Yep. And the kids threw their phones in the backpack, and the frog ate the phones. But there was a freedom they had, and they would giggle when they would watch the frog vibrate across the table sometimes, and there was a freedom in it. The enforcement thing, there's the other element. Most schools now are one-to-one devices. And with that one-to-one device, meaning each student has a Chromebook or an iPad or something, depending on the school. And the benefit of those is the school controls the device. So the filtration that's on the device, most of the devices are going to have tools like GoGuardian that allows the teacher to see what's on the screen from one dashboard. And so there's certain security there that you wouldn't have on personal devices. And this is something that we even accept with employers, right? That when I am, before seminary, I worked for a while in telemarketing. I was expected, and there was a lockbox for me to drop off my personal cell phone when I went under the floor because I was dealing with personal credit cards and all of that. And they wanted to be able to know that there wasn't a risk of us snapping a photo of someone's information. And I'm sure there's some employers that still hold that. And so it's also for teaching these kids for future. It's another teachable moment there, I guess.
Right. I agree. This is something we deal with as adults. it's something we should be teaching kids as kids. And it's as much a parental problem as it is a child problem or student problem. There are some benefits to the phones. I have to point this out as a parent of kids who have sensory issues. I have at least one child, actually a couple children, who when they get into an anxiety state or overwhelmed, noise, whatever, headphones with noise canceling headphones and soothing music or an audiobook is a way for them to re-regulate when they become dysregulated. It allows them to calm down. So, like in school, a ban I get. In other activities like in Scouts, we've actually talked to my son's Scoutmaster and said, hey, on camping trips he needs to have the headphones available to him, because in general they ban cell phone use, but it's like he needs, and they understand. At least one of my sons has some of these issues, and that they're very accommodating. They're really great with him, actually. But in general, I like the idea for in my girls' troop. The girls we have a real problem with going on camping trips and the girls sinking into their phones the whole time instead of being part of the activities. So we're going to probably implement this thing where the girls all have to put their phones into a central location, a bag or something like that, like you mentioned with your youth group, just so that they can enjoy the activities of scouting.
And we never had a policy anywhere I was that was just a carpet policy, right? There was always room for special situations. Kids with parents whose health is failing and there's high anxiety there, to be able to, within reason, give them comfort. Usually those kids aren't going to abuse that right.
Right.
Kids who have blood problems, diabetes, all of those, that they have devices that their phone needs to monitor, right? And so you have different technology then that that phone needs to be on them for that to be working. So, but again, I have found that those kids who the phone is a tool for their good, that they aren't abusing that right.
Right.
If you place that trust in them that they're going to use it for that case, they generally don't abuse that right. And so now we keep a close eye, making sure they don't abuse that right. But
they're still kids. Yeah.
but you can't have a carpet policy on everything. And so that's the other difficulty of, small schools, it's easy for me to do that. Big schools with 1,000, 2,000 kids, knowing every kid who has diabetes or has different
autism or all that sort of stuff,
different spectrum issues, that it's going to be difficult for teachers to take care, to keep that all on track. You need to be having good school management system stuff and to keep all that in track. So
you mentioned the diabetes one. That's an important one, because I know I have a friend who has a child who has type 1 and has a glucose monitor that connects to the phone and alerts if their blood glucose drops too far, sends an alert to parents, and there's a whole thing. There are edge cases where you need to make exceptions. It can't be zero tolerance or blanket policies. There is even if schools aren't doing this now, there is a lot of bipartisan legislative action, state and federal level, recognizing these problems. And so we can expect more of this. There's a new student-led log off movement, because a lot of kids are recognizing the problems that smartphones are. So this is going to be something, that is, there's going to be movement on this over time. We'll just have to see what there is. But for your own kids, we probably need to as parents, take action, and parents and educators need to start taking action ourselves too.
What I find funny, going back to Cupertino here, in Silicon Valley, is guys like Zuckerberg his kids' schools are zero tech, right? Yeah. And that comes up all the time. And so the people who make this technology, for some reason, know better than we do that their kids should be educated without the grasp of that technology. And so there's something to look at in that too.
That's right. Right. That's right. The people who make it, they don't give it to their own kids. So it should tell us something there. All right. So I think that'll do it for our discussion on this topic for now. I'd love to hear from others, educators, parents, others who have opinions on this. What do you think? Do you try to limit smartphone use for your kids, your students? What are the policies where your kids go to school or in your homeschool? What do you do? Now, before we move on, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of technology, including Jeffrey W., Dennis H., John S., Mary S., and Renee C. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of technology and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So we do have another story. We're talking about two articles, which are very interesting. The first one comes from the BBC and about discussion in the UK about work from home policies. As another topic we've brought up a few times on the show. And in the UK, the new Labour government, they've had a change in government. And so the new Labour government is really pushing rights for people to work from home, kind of enshrining it. As we all know, when the pandemic happened, everyone who could started working from home. And then we went from that, and over time, people liked it. The employees liked not having to commute, and they found they were getting their work done in many cases that just as well. But over time, a lot of companies have started to pull back on that, and government agencies, which is what they're talking about in this article in the BBC. And so the Labour government in the UK is looking to propose a bill that would give people the more employee rights, including the right to disconnect outside of working hours, i.e. your boss isn't allowed to text you when you've gone home and make you continue to work. A ban on something called 0-hour contracts, which is a UK thing, but it's basically a type of contract that the employer is not obliged to provide any minimum number of working hours to the employee, and the employee is not obliged to accept any work offered. So it's almost feels kind of like you're freelance worker, but they want to ban this sort of thing because all the power in that sort of contract is with the employer, right? And then another aspect is allowing workers to compress their contracted hours into fewer working days, and then more rights to work from home and that sort of thing. So we could just get started talking about that. So what do you think, Father, about this push to enshrine this new ability for people to work from home if they want?
Yeah. Well, the UK is different than the United States. That's one thing there. It's a mixed bag. There's a lot of benefits of it. I can see, especially parents with children, and new mothers and things like that. I've personally seen a lot of benefits when we've, even as parishes, when we've had employees who said, yeah, as long as you can get that done at home, do it at home. We need you in the office a minimum amount each week or whatever. So I see the benefit of that. I also see it can't be a totality thing. If a company needs human relations between employees, you can't do that over a screen. Yeah. And so...
I think it depends on the organization and the culture. I mean,
the job. Yeah.
Yeah. SQPN is a completely virtual organization. None of us are in the same location ever, including the couple of us who actually work for SQPN as a job, but even the volunteers. And I had a previous job where I had to commute an hour and a half each way to an office where I sat in the office and interacted with no one all day and then drove home again to do things that I could have done from home.
Yeah, that's silly.
Yeah. And I get the whole idea you need to create a culture of a company. Sometimes you need to be present to people, and we're incarnational beings. We are embodied people. So being physically present can be important, at least at times, to get together with people, to remember that they're more than just images on a screen. But I do think there's also an aspect of treating people like adults, treating them like and judging them based on the outcome of their work. If someone can't do their job without a manager standing over their shoulder to make sure they're actually working, maybe they're not a great employee to begin with. Maybe they need more coaching, or maybe they need to find a different line of work. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Something more important, I think, than this working from home thing that the UK, I think, is getting right here is this right to disconnect. There used to be the basic decency that after I got off of work, I couldn't have imagined my boss calling my home phone at 9 p.m. Before cell phones and social media and all of this stuff. There was a social norm that wouldn't be crossed.
Vacation. Getting called on vacation because someone needs something.
Yeah. And so this reality of letting people disconnect, if you have to have your email on your phone, set up your email that your do not disturb is after you get out of work. And let that be the expectation. Here's the freedom. Once you start doing this and you let people stop expecting it from you, then they don't expect it anymore. So if you become that person that, honestly, for me, unless it's urgent, if it's after about 7 p.m. for me and someone that it's business related sends me a text, it's not getting answered till after the morning mass the next day. Unless it's something that's life or death or a funeral.
Right.
Like that's just, and once you begin that expectation from people, there's a lot of freedom to be had. But there's such a fear of offending and that social media fear that we're talking about with the kids. It's happening with adults and employees too. And this need to instantaneously respond. So good job on them to try to break that.
Right. Yeah. This topic is not unrelated to the first one we were talking about earlier. These social norms that have developed where we're expected to work at any time, to work at all times. So there is that danger in working from home, in that you don't have the divide between home and work, and that can be an issue. So that's also an aspect of it.
It creates the anxiety of, like, to use a doctor analogy here, when you have a doctor or a nurse that's on call, right? Even if they're, quote, off and they don't get called when they're on call, there's still an energy that it takes to be on call and not be off. And what we've created then is a perpetual on-call environment. And so people never have rest. They're always working. You're actually on call for work every hour of the week when you don't create those limits.
Yeah. There's another article that I wanted to bring up too, which is that Amazon announced this week that beginning immediately, they expect people to start working in the office 5 days a week, unless you get a special dispensation from, an executive at the company. You're in the office 5 days a week. I can imagine. I've heard tales that of the big tech companies, Amazon is the one people like working at the least. It has the lowest employee satisfaction. So I can't imagine this is going to go over very well at Amazon in general. And I have to ask why, what is so important about it? That to be in there 5 days a week, every day, basically, micromanaging. Is it a generational divide that people of an older generation who remembers the day when everyone had to go sit at a desk every day?
Now my question is, there's also the disconnect between their high level and their lower level employees. And Amazon has had a reputation of not treating their warehouse workers well. So is there something in here to repair this reputation and to be in the office and be around as much as their blue collar guys? I don't know.
I doubt it. I doubt they care that much just based on the way that they've treated their employees.
Yeah.
And that's an important point, too, is all of these articles about remote work and that sort of thing, they're all focused on the sort of people who can sit at a desk all day to do their job. Not everyone, in fact, very many people, their job requires them to walk out a door and go a place and do a thing. You can't make the widget. You can't fix the thing, the sprocket. You can't give the sacraments to people via Zoom. And so there's a lot of people who none of this really applies to. And so in some ways, it's unfair how much focus has been put on this. When there's plenty of people who, need to go out and flip the burger and mow the lawn and do all those things that keep everything running in our society. They don't get to work from home either. So
one of my favorite articles, it was over a year ago, was Zoom did the same policy about a year ago that they had to return to work. I think it was 2 or 3 days a week. That people who lived within like a 40 or 50 mile radius of the office. And it was just one of those. Yeah. That's ironic.
Right. Well, and an aspect of this is so many of these companies are these big office buildings where all these white collar workers work are in cities that are expensive. And a lot of people took advantage of these remote work policies to move places that are much more affordable. And they're either going to have to quit or move back to a place that they can't really afford to live. I live in the Boston metro area, and it is distinctly unaffordable here. Let me just put it that way. I fantasize all the time about moving someplace a lot less expensive to live. If I had to drive into the city every day, I literally told the last person I worked for, the last boss I had, I told her, if I have to keep driving into the office every day it will literally kill me. I will die from a heart attack from the stress of it. I was spending 2 hours to get home, and I don't even live that many miles from the place. So it was. I can imagine it is a quality of life issue as well for some people. In that aspect, anyway. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see as these things go. I'll be curious to see in a year if Amazon still has the 5-day-a-week policy, how it affects them. I'm not sure how Zoom's policy affected their, whether they changed their ways either. There has been, when companies have had these sort of draconian return to work policies, like you have to come back to work every day, that sort of thing. There has been pushback. There has been people who've left, and some companies may have had to modify their policies. So it'll be curious to see how that goes. So, moving on, it's time for our picks of the week. And so, Father, I'll give you the honor. What is your picks this week?
I have 2 picks this week. So, actually, the day that we're recording right now, would have been my dad's birthday. It is his birthday, but in memory of him. And so the two things that I picked were actually gifts that I got my dad a while back. And so the first one I have here is it's Sea Crane. So it's a brand of radios that my dad really liked. The antennas in them are this special spiral antenna that gets you really great reception. And just things coming crystal clear. The first one is the Sea Crane solar wind up. So it has it's an AM FM weather band radio. And the newer version that's out now also has a Bluetooth connectivity and a USB charger for your phone. I think it's a 3,500 milliamp battery, but also you have the hand crank, right? And so there's the ability to charge your phone through it with the hand crank as well. So it adds that other functionality. So the nice thing about it is that we keep this one around for my mom, and it's the emergency weather radio. If there's when there's tornado warnings and when the power goes out, there's always a safety thing. It has a nice flashlight on it too. So you can shine the flashlight at someone, right? And
you said it's got Bluetooth receiving, so it works as a Bluetooth speaker as well.
It does work. The newer one works as a Bluetooth speaker. The one I have here does not work as a Bluetooth speaker. It's 10 years old or so now. But great radio, just
Excellent.
Really well. And Sea Crane, all of their stuff is very well built. Good radios. So,
okay.
My second one it's a Sea Crane Skywave 2. I have this first Skywave. So this is AM, FM, weather, air, and shortwave radio. And so, again, the antenna's the big selling part of this. And so this one, nothing fancy about it. No special cranks or anything like that. Just a pocket radio, but it's a darn good pocket radio. My favorite thing about it is you have 99 memory slots for your presets for each band, which I'm not sure you're going to come up with that many memory slots, but they, just wanted to make sure. You can change the band width, which means that, if I'm changing bandwidth, then I'm going best audio is usually at 6 kilohertz. Best legibility is usually 3 or 4 hertz. And then the strongest to get rid of static is the 1 or 2 hertz. So we're talking about wavelengths and things that you're able to choose that.
Yeah, when you tune into a particular station, like 10:30, AM, it usually covers 1025 to 1035 or something like that. Just say that. It's probably not. But if you widen the band, sometimes that signal travels a little bit back and forth. You can get more of it, although you also get more static. But when you narrow it down, you get rid of more static, but you may lose some of the strength of it.
Yeah, some of the audio quality or voice quality you may lose when you do that. But your ordinary radio can't give you those fine points. And so my dad loved his radios he did police radios with back in the days when you had to build them and put the crystals in them, shortwave radios from the days that you had to build them and put the crystals in them. And so, you never had enough radios. So
this second one too, it should point out that I don't want to miss this, is that has the aviation band, so you can listen in to air traffic control towers and ground control, air traffic control, and airplanes, which is really cool. They say in it, hey, if you're traveling and there are flight delays, you can listen to air traffic control and figure out what's going on and maybe learn more about the situation. I don't know that.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant by air when I said air, and I didn't.
Yeah. But I think it's really cool to be able to listen into that sort of thing. I think I mean, you can get some of this stuff via apps and over the internet, but there's nothing like having a radio right there with an antenna, pulling it out of the air. You don't have to worry about internet connection and all that sort of stuff like that. So I think that's really cool.
And again, two alkaline batteries usually get me about 20 hours of listening out of it, which is just remarkable.
The first one you mentioned, the solar and crank one, was listed at $100, and the second one that has the aviation and the other stuff, that's $90. So, but like you said, quality. You're buying quality. You can get cheap radios, but you're getting what you pay for.
This is the closest thing I think there is now to your old Radio Shack radios. The quality versions. I don't. This is kind of the hobbyist radio company now. And so I remember having a great Radio Shack radio that my dad loaned me while I was in college seminary in Northwest Missouri. And I could get stations from Omaha, which were 2 hours away, pick up the AM stations from Omaha to listen to all the sports games still. So I never lost any of my sports games. Now, we had slow internet, so that was before great streaming.
I remember going to school in Eastern Ohio in the summer at night, tuning in to the Boston, 1030 is the WBZ was the 100,000 watt station out of Boston. I could listen to Sox games back then. Yeah, that's really cool. The internet kind of has spoiled us to the magic of long distance radio. That's for sure. So my pick this week is another Anchor product, but this is a power bank I picked up that is really great. It's the Anchor MagGo Power Bank 10K. It's got a couple of features. One, it uses MagSafe, so if you have a MagSafe iPhone, you can slap it on there and it will stick to it with the magnets. But it also has Qi 2 charging, so you can charge other things on it too. It's just not magnetic for them necessarily, but it has because it's Qi 2, it does 15 watts of charging, which is pretty fast and pretty good. It has a kickstand so that you can use it, say, like on a bedside table. You want your phone to be kind of standing up so that you can, see the alarm, see the time or whatever. So it has a kickstand. It has an LCD screen so you can see the charge at a glance, 100%, 90%, that sort of thing. And so that's really helpful. And it charges with USB-C. So I'm all for getting rid of all those USB mini cables. And my son came to me with he found an old digital camera and he's like, "What's this?" "That's USB micro, son. Let's not go there." I'm sure there's one in the closet in the box of obsolete tech, but I don't want to go digging for that. So let's just forget that. You found it.
You should show him a camera that operated over the COM port. No.
Parallel ports and serial ports, yeah. But in any case, the Anchor, the MagGo Power Bank is really nice. Charges fast, charges up fast, but also charges your stuff pretty fast. And so highly recommend it. It comes in a range of colors for your fashion needs as well. I picked white because I like the white one because all tech bags are dark interiors. So at least now I can find it when I'm looking in the bag because it stands out.
Is it generally pretty slim on the phone? Does it make it too fat?
I wouldn't carry it around connected to the phone. I have a smaller portable one that's slimmer. So it's a little bit chunky I wouldn't put it in my pocket, say, with it on it. So it's a little bit chunky like that. It's better for like bedside table, on a desk, that sort of thing.
So this wouldn't be a everyday carry feature from you, probably?
No,
No.
No,
Okay.
this goes in a bag for me. I have a different Anchor one that I've picked before that is my everyday carry. It fits in my pocket and isn't too bulky. This is a little bulkier. It's the 10K, so it's 10,000 milliamp hours. So it's going to give you a lot of what it was to say 1.8 charges for an iPhone 15 Pro, which is a big battery. So that's pretty good. You can it's a big battery to begin with. So if you're shooting video all day, this will get you through the day with it. So that's pretty good. All right. So those are our picks of the week, and that'll do it from us this time. We would love to get your feedback on anything we talked about. Let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology or the StarQuest Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Send an email to technology@sqpn.com. Visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. You'll find links from our discussion and picks of the week on our show notes at starquest.fm/TEC271. Be sure to follow The Secrets of Tech in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, in your favorite podcast app, or at the StarQuest YouTube channel, where you should also make sure to hit the bell and subscribe. Until next time, Father Joseph's son, thank you for joining me in sharing the secrets of technology.
You're welcome, and kids, put those phones away.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.